Overwatch 2's balance philosophy has been lost in the sands of time, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Hi everybody, my name is Abby. In today's video, we'll be discussing why I think the balance has just been completely lost. There's no vision, there's no philosophy, there's no objective to be attained. Rather, I actually feel like at the moment, the balance that they do is just done with just changes for the sake of changes, with very few of those changes actually trying to be meaningful in, reducing reducing the current meta hero that people don't like to play against, but they don't actually understand what people enjoy about Overwatch. Now, before I talk about the actual balance and the state of it and what can be done to help it, we first must understand what is it that made Overwatch so fun to play and made it win Game of the Year in 2016, and at least the early era of Overwatch 1 in 2016 to early 2019. What was it that made it so fun? Well, let's talk about that right away. So, guys, what made Overwatch 1 so fun was this idea behind it that this game was a wacky hero shooter, team play oriented game that you would come down, play together, and it held the roots of a first person shooter very true. It rewarded skill at the time. People were all learning the game together, but for sure, the best of the best characters were all high skill ceiling characters back then in early 2016. The meta comps were dive, but not everybody could play dive. Not everybody was playing Genji the way Genji was supposed to be played, Tracer the way Tracer was supposed to be played, and etc. gets applied to D.Va and Winston. And back then, the meta support line, I believe early Overwatch 1 before Ana came into the picture, was Lucio and Zen, right? So like everybody that was playing these characters, they had to understand the heroes to a completely new degree, and it was beautiful to watch. It was super fun to watch. In fact, I implore you guys, even when Ana came out, to go watch Overwatch Apex. If you can find it somewhere on YouTube, it was a phenomenal state of competitive Overwatch with the highest skill ceiling Overwatch being displayed, and everybody loved Overwatch Apex. So, looking back at all of that, what did people enjoy that we can see even nowadays that people enjoy about Overwatch? Well, the choice of characters that are the popular characters never changed. For example, the most popular character in Overwatch is a character called Genji. And then right next to him, or maybe just a little bit above him, is a character called Mercy. Jeff Kaplan revealed this when he was asked in an interview a while ago when he was still around with Blizzard, where somebody asked him, well, who are the most popular heroes? To which he basically said Genji and Mercy are basically on the same level. There's a big drop from that point, and then comes the rest of the cast and popularity. So Genji and Mercy have been the top heroes in terms of popularity and the characters that people want to play. Why? Well, because Mercy is a great support hero. Like she is a very different type of hero that only Overwatch can have, and she attracted a very big crowd of people that might have been new to first person shooters into like playing support, and she was a great hero for that. This was before Moira's time as well. Now Moira kind of is with Mercy in regards to that. Granted that Mercy has a much higher skill ceiling than what Moira does. Now, over on the damage side of things, Genji, Tracer, Widowmaker, Cassidy, Ashe, these are the characters, or even Hanzo, I don't want to forget about Hanzo. These are the characters that people tend to flock to right away. Why? Because they're fun to play, they have high skill expressions, and they feel satisfying to play when you sit down and you start doing things on them. And then you have some of the more wackier characters that are like fun for every now and then, like map dependent picks, which is like, Junkrat, maybe a bit of Pharah here and there on King of the Hill, Symmetra and Torbjorn. The point is that we have to understand that back then there were some heroes that were generalists like Genji, Tracer, Hanzo, Ashe, Widowmaker that we were okay with having all the time because they rewarded skill. And then there were some characters that should have always been locked into the maps that they were good on. So Junkrat would pop up on Lijiang Tower Control Center. Mei would pop up with Brawl comps alongside Reaper, or along, like, it was like Mei Reaper, like Reaper would get swapped out for something else. Sometimes you'd see Sim, and it just depended on the comp and situation. My point basically was that the game was just a lot more fun when characters had an objective behind them, and generalist characters were a lot more fair and had high skill ceilings, especially, like, this is really important in the damage role. And in the tank role, each of the tanks had a unique identity because they were all designed to enable a special playstyle. So tank Winston was designed with, okay, well, he's going to enable like a mobile comp. So you'd see him with characters like Genji and Tracer. When you played Reinhardt, you knew that, okay, Rein's here, I gotta pick Zarya, I gotta brawl with him, and then maybe like, you could play some other, like you can play a variety of DPS with Rein and Zarya because of how flexible brawl can be in accommodating like different types of DPS and supports. But optimally speaking, if you really wanted to push that comp to its highest degree, playing a combination of Mei with Reaper or Mei and Cassidy was always a good idea, right? And going over to the support role, supports even back then had great flexibility, and even now they have great flexibility. So I'm not going to dig too deep into that, but for the sake of it, Ana was pretty much fine everywhere, in every comp, in every situation. We're not going to talk about double shield. That's not for today's video. That's going to be for some other time. My point basically is that the game was fun back then because the game was balanced. With this in mind, at least again, early Overwatch, not like Brig, like post Brig Overwatch. We're not going to talk about that. Like that is like, maybe I'll talk about it a little bit later, but not now. So back then, like that was kind of what was pushed, was that, okay, regardless of what you played, there was skill expression. And the best thing, what made Overwatch what it was the fact that it was all about making big plays. The Graviton Surge plus Dragon Strike combos, the Nano Boost with Dragon Blade, the Nano Blossoms with Reaper, the Teleporter Symmetra plays with Cassidy doing High Noon. All of these things were like extremely fun to do, and there was variations of different things, like like Space Jam with Graviton Surge and Doomfist Meteor Strike, or the Diva, and there's so many things to talk about that you could do, right? The point is, that level of team play is just not around anymore. And that's kind of what sucks. If anything, Blizzard has done everything possible to deny big playmaking in Overwatch 2. It kind of feels like with almost every update, with almost every new hero, especially in the support role at least, they are designing these heroes with the idea, well, at least mostly support again, with this idea that can this support shut something down? For example, like again, now if we enter post Brig Overwatch, well, Brig, she completely denied dive and she's still very good at it. And ironically enough, she's actually very good to play with dive in 5v5 setting. But again, like I don't want to dig too deep into things for today's video, because I know I'm going to drag this out to be a long video anyway. Kiriko Suzu, Ana's anti-nade in a 5v5 setting, not in 6v6, in a 5v5 setting. Lifeweaver's pull, Illari's pylon, making a 1v1 duel hilariously difficult for a DPS player to take. Baptiste's immortality field. There are so many abilities that, like, really for the next support, I'm scared that, okay, well, what is this character going to do? That's going to, like, okay, well, it renders your play useless and makes the support player's playmaking ability much more valuable and much more like prioritized, that no matter what you did, it doesn't matter. They press this one button and you're not allowed to do anything now. This is the biggest frustrating point of Overwatch, and this is from the support's abilities perspective, right? It's more healthier to design abilities like that in ultimates than it is in abilities. Again, I will dig deeper into abilities and ultimates within a much larger video where I plan on explaining what is a fair ability, what is a overpowered or unfair ability, and how can we like rework or mess around with these things to make them more fair, etc, etc. On the tank side of things, in 5v5, tanks have completely lost their identity. There's just, you could argue that there's almost 3 styles of play for tank, which is pretty much like poke, brawl, and dive. I know you can make an argument about rush, but Lucio, at least in like anything below GM or high masters, Lucio doesn't get played that much because that level of coordination is just not there to make it work. So I'm just going to view it from these 3, POVs. So Sigma and Orisa are, enable some variation of poke, and then like we have a very big roster that enables brawl. Junker Queen, Malga, Ramatra, Reinhardt, Roadhog, Diva, Zarya. Yes, I'm going to say Diva is more of a brawl tank now than she is a dive tank. And if you're playing her like a dive tank, you're feeding. She has to be played very smartly and very carefully. But why would you pick her when every other brawl tank that I just mentioned, Roadhog, Ryan, Ramatra, Jungle Queen, Malga, Zarya, all of them are miles better than her? Diva is one of the characters that's lost her identity. She was always a dive tank, but now she's forced to slow her playstyle down in order to not feed, excuse me. And we kind of see this with other tanks too. For example, Jungle Queen, Mauga, Ramatra, Reinhardt, Zarya, and Roadhog. Roadhog is slightly, I'm going to exclude Roadhog just slightly, but Queen, Mauga, Ram, Rein, and Zarya, they all do the same thing. Like, let's look at their playstyle. Even, again, no, Roadhog fits into this. Look at what they're trying to do. They just walk up to you, and they shoot you. That is tank in Overwatch 2. I walk up to you and I shoot you. And what is the state of unique characters like Doom, D.Va, Ball, Winston? They're all garbage. D.Va is forced to play a brawl playstyle in order to be viable. If she chases too much or she actually commits to a dive, she's going to get instantly demeched if the enemy team has 2 functioning brain cells. Yes, you can still play her in a dive comp, but they're just much better options. And when you want to play her, you want to play her for her defensive utility with defense matrix and play around that and punish people rather than actually use her for full committed dives. The lack of AoE, that, like, for example, like Winston and Doomfist have some AoE to help set up big engagements. D.Va doesn't really have that. She's really good at single target focus. So she's a very niche character from the tank role right now, which sucks because I really love playing D.Va and she just feels really awkward to play here and there. Unless it's very, very few specific matchups, or you can play D.Va almost picture perfectly. Then we look at like the state of Doom, Winston, and Ball. Wrecking Ball is a relic. He is literally a decoration item placed in the hero gallery for you to just look at and collect skins. You don't actually play Wrecking Ball. If you play Wrecking Ball, you've already lost the game at Hero Select. I'm not going to dig deep into Wrecking Ball. 𝐒𝐿 did a full video on it. And the fact that developers have basically just kind of shrugged and said, yeah, no, we'll rework him at some point, while not seeing the incredible flaws that is happening in the tank role is insane. Like, if somehow Ball ends up becoming a brawl tank, I'm going to lose my mind. Anyways, look at Winston and Doom. There is so much in this game that counters Winston and Doom that it's genuinely sad. Like, Winston and Doom just cannot play the game anymore. Winston, he makes a dive. Okay, you won one fight off of Winston's dive. Excellent, great. Now deal with the fact that they picked Mauga / Roadhog, Bastion, Torbjorn, like Brigitte, Kiriko, Ana, like any form, like as supports. Supports can do everything, so I'm not gonna say anything about supports. But they just picked like Bastion, Torb, Mauga, or Roadhog, and now you're sitting there on Winston like, okay, well, you know, I could play Winston into this, but if my team doesn't follow up perfectly and we take out the targets that we're supposed to, I'm just gonna get melted. I'm gonna die in the span of a few seconds. And this is where the balance problem comes in, is that these easier characters are very, very easily deleting characters that require much more skill. I'm sorry, but Bastion, Torbjorn, you know, Mauga or Roadhog looking at a Winston and deleting him because Winston, or even in this case Doomfist, were playing the game that they were like playing them in the way that they were supposed to be played, they just get deleted. This is horrible game design. The fact that the developers even try to enable them as such powerful counterpicks is so stupid to me, especially since they said that, no, we don't want counterpicking to be a thing. And then a few months later, they were like, actually, about that, we kind of want counterpicking to be a thing. There's so much wrong with their philosophy, not just with balance, but with the game. This video has already gotten long enough. My main point, like my main thing to put into your guys' minds was, like, just generate this thought, like some food for thought to understand that, isn't it weird how we've lost, like, so many heroes are losing their identity. They've done a good job with some of them. Like, Sombra's rework was really good. I think so, like, that's very underrated. But to be honest, Roadhog's rework was a massive joke, right? They didn't understand what made Roadhog bad to play with, bad to play against, and they rather kind of just doubled down on it, gave him like this stupid trap, and they were like, yeah, this is the massive rework that we made you guys wait like 6+ months for. Like, we gave him a trap, a Junkrat trap, remodeled with a slow ability rather than a stun ability, even though Junkrat early on in Overwatch 2 had a slow on his trap as well. So they just gave him the same thing. They just needed 6 months to animate and make the tiny ball of circle of metal and put it in the game. My point basically is that the Overwatch team is seeing in real time that they are struggling within this 5v5 role queue environment, and a question can now be asked, even though I enjoy 5v5, that is it finally time to go back to 6v6? And my response to that is still the same. Even if we go back to 6v6, if they do not balance this game from skill to value ratio in mind, this game is never going to become fun. And the most important thing to keep in mind is they cannot just make random changes. For example, in this patch, Mauga got nerfed. Excellent, thumbs up, great job, you did amazing. You shit him out of the game, you threw him down the toilet drain, and you were like, yeah, forget about this guy, he's a piece of garbage, nobody enjoys playing against him. excellent. We're away from this high sustain, like, you know, sorry, no, like not high sustain, but like almost an immortal tank that just never dies because supports hella pocket him and he has great abilities to be able to tank damage and then stay in the fight and just constantly put out damage. Yeah, we're going to go away from that tank, only to now buff up another tank that does the same thing in Orisa. And we already had an Orisa / Sigma meta earlier in season, like, you know, in the earlier season, like last few months ago. And like everybody expressed how boring it was to play into that style of gameplay. Like, this game is always fun when characters like Winston and Ryan are the go-to picks for tank. For characters in damage, it's Genji and Tracer, okay? And like the hit scans like Cass and Ashe, like as long as Cass and Ashe are not overly broken, they're, you know, like the game is fun too. And then support, I don't mind support being strong, but I'm going to give support a dedicated video of where I will say how to make support more healthy, and I'll dig into them over there. So I will allow supports to play into their strengths while making sure that each support follows the same original Overwatch support philosophy in Overwatch 1, where supports had strengths and they had their weaknesses. And if you knew how to exploit a weakness, the support would get punished. But that didn't mean that the support was not strong. I'm going to dig into that in that support video, but I'll leave us off with this. We have constantly been playing in this style of gameplay ever since Ghosts, of really high healing and just this big like ball like comp that, okay, everybody group up, like no flanking allowed, no this allowed, no that allowed. Why? Because if you go do that, well, you're just going to get deleted from the game and you're going to feed, and now you have to play as a big ball. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong expecting people to play together as a team. There's everything wrong when you try to create these like styles of play, and for the styles of play you say, yeah, well, the best characters to play for these situations are these like really relatively easy to play characters that don't necessarily need that much time input. Like, why would I learn Genji or Echo or Tracer that would take me like 100 hours on each hero to actually like at least do the basics on them well, when I can just kind of play Mei and hold left click and like learn in 1 hour how to do good wall positions, because it's really not that hard. Stop exaggerating it. Mei's not that difficult, right? That's basically kind of what I want to talk about, and that's what I'm going to leave off in this video today, is the balance philosophy has not changed. They cannot try to make every hero quote unquote accessible. We have to have a good skill to value ratio, and it doesn't matter if we're in 5v5, doesn't matter if we're in 6v6. As long as the philosophy doesn't change, nothing is going to change. And one final note, Alec Dawson said that there's going to be a systematic change to the game in season 9. I don't have any hope in that. If anything, it might actually end up making the game worse, because the way I see it is, it's not that hard to solve the game's problems. It's okay for the game to become fast and the way it was when the game launched, while having strong supports, but giving the damage and the tank roll a little bit more power. It's okay to have that and let the game be a chaotic, wacky mess, because the game is just more fun when the game is a wacky, chaotic mess. That's literally what won it Game of the Year. When you try to forcefully slow the game down, that's when the game gets worse. Anyways, everybody, that's going to be it for this video. It was a little bit all over the place. I've been seeing them ruin the game over and over and over again. You look at what they did with Orisa Dispatch, you look at what they did with Sojourn Dispatch, and honestly, my bad, I kind of mispredicted or miscalculated the changes that Sojourn got. At first I was like, oh, this is a great quality of life change, and I still think from a quality of life perspective of how the hero plays, it's a pretty good change, but it makes the hero really oppressive, like because the rail is coming back online more. And again, I have a Sojourn rework video coming soon too, to explain how to make Sojourn more healthy as well. With that being said, everybody, that's going to be it for this video. If you want to support the channel for free, you can do so by hitting like and subscribe. And if you want more Overwatch content, well, you know, like and subscribe. That's how I know you want it. In tomorrow's video, we're going to be talking about how to make supports healthy, and we'll be doing a live stream tonight. So if you're interested, feel free to drop by. We'll be checking out Quick Play Hacked. I'm very excited for that. I will see you in the live stream and tomorrow's video.